I'm Lynn Berry, and we have some late-breaking developments on that failed Times Square bombing to report. Let's get right to NBC's Chief Justice correspondent Pete Williams. He's been covering the story. Pete, what can you tell us?
I'm told by senior officials that a man has now been taken into custody. There is an arrest in the case just over 48 hours from the time when someone drove an SUV into Times Square and set off a big bomb scare with attempting to set off a bomb. Authorities tell us that a man was arrested just within the hour in the New York area on Long Island after an intensive investigation. They identify him as Shahzad Faisal, a Pakistani-American. We don't know his age. We don't know much else about him at this point. But the key evidence, we're told in this case, was the SUV itself. Authorities were able to get a vehicle identification number off the SUV, the 1993 Nissan Pathfinder. That led to the registered buyer, someone who was on record as having bought the Pathfinder. But it turns out that that person in Connecticut actually sold it last month, placing an ad on Craigslist, sold it for cash, and said he couldn't remember the name of the buyer. But the FBI was able to get the email records. That led to the man they arrested tonight. Now, that's not the only evidence in the case, I'm told, that there is other information that helped them lead to him. They're saying that this is a remarkable piece of investigative work, just, as I say, just over 48 hours since this all happened. Now, as to what happens now, because he was arrested in the New York area, he will undoubtedly be appearing in court probably tomorrow to face the charges. He is from Connecticut, but the federal rules say that you are your initial court appearance is in the district where you were arrested, and of course that's where the government says the crime was committed. So officials say that they not only can tie him to the purchase of the car last month in Connecticut, but they also have additional evidence that they believe establishes that he drove that car into Times Square on Saturday night and that he is the man responsible for this bombing. Now, in the last several hours, authorities have also been analyzing his telephone records, his emails, his contacts with people overseas, and they say there are many of those contacts, but they cannot be certain at this point whether those contacts had anything to do with the bombing. But it is a line of inquiry that they are following very aggressively. Now, of course, they hope that in the next several hours, perhaps he'll be able to reveal something when he's questioned, and that will be taking place, I'm sure, all during the night if he's willing to answer any questions. But it's a big break in the case. An arrest has been made. A man now arrested, taken into custody in connection with the attempted bombing on Long Island Saturday night. We expect to hear shortly, probably within the next perhaps half hour to 45 minutes, from the Attorney General, who may offer us a little more detail about precisely what happened. But just to repeat, there's been an arrest in the attempted bombing on Long Island by the man who drove his SUV so spectacularly into Long Island with an attempted bombing about 6:30 Saturday night that resulted in closing down Times Square for probably about 10 hours. Thousands of people were moved out of Times Square. Hundreds of hotel guests were kept out of their rooms for most of the night. And, of course, restaurants and businesses were shut down all throughout the Times Square area. The Times Square is back to normal, they tell us now. But this case now becomes, it takes on a very different character. And the other question, of course, will be whether authorities believe he acted alone, whether there are others who helped him out in this bombing. And on that, I'm told, the evidence is still yet to be pursued. There are some who theorize that this would take the work of more than one person. There was apparently some material found in the SUV that suggests someone else had been recently in the car, but whether that person was connected to the bombing or not is still something to be pursued. So all we know at this point is they believe they found their man. That, of course, is going to be for a court to decide, and we'll see what exactly the charges are that are filed. All they have is an arrest warrant right now. There are no charges filed, so we'll see how that takes shape. We'll see what the authorities say in the coming days about whether they believe this was, in fact, a bombing that had international connections or whether this was something that was done entirely by one person. These international contacts, the question is whether there were inspiration from overseas, whether there were instructions from overseas. It does seem unlikely, officials say, who've been watching this investigation and who are involved in it, that whoever assembled the bomb had much experience or knowledge, certainly training, because it was so badly put together. The entire means of the bomb, the explosion, the way it was supposed to be put together, the way the explosion was supposed to happen, seemed very badly planned, fortunately, so they don't believe there was any expertise there. But that is the news tonight. An arrest has been made, and we'll probably be hearing more in the coming hours tonight.
Well, and Pete, you touched on this a little bit as to whether or not this international communication means anything, whether this was just an innocent act. Is there anything that we know specifically about what kind of communication that was instituted? You know, we've heard a little bit that
well,
there's
there were
a possibility.
certainly phone calls.
Phone
right,
calls.
there were certainly phone calls. Travel is something they're looking into. I've frankly heard conflicting information on whether there was travel. And, of course, here's someone who is of Pakistani descent, so probably family members in Pakistan, and what authorities don't know is what was the nature of those communications. Was this family business, or was it something more sinister? And that's what they're trying to nail down. So they're still unwilling to say tonight, even despite this arrest, whether they believe this had international connections, international tentacles or not.
And Pete, you know, we have been hearing all throughout the day about this surveillance video, this person of interest on the surveillance video. Do we know whether or not police are linking this this suspect that has been arrested tonight to that surveillance video? Is this possibly separate to someone else that may have been involved? Do we know anything about that?
That's a very good question. You're talking, of course, about the video that was released Sunday night by New York City police that shows a man walking away from the SUV. He's wearing a dark-colored shirt. He stops. He keeps looking back. The police say he keeps looking there. There it is. You'll see him there taking his shirt off, and he keeps looking over his shoulder. They say that's back in the direction of the SUV. So he takes off a dark-colored shirt, and below he's wearing a lighter-colored shirt. And I think the reason they released that tape is they thought it looked like suspicious behavior. Could have been someone trying to conceal his identity. And frankly, I've heard conflicting things today about whether the investigators believe that, in fact, is the person that they arrested today. So we'll probably hear more about that in the coming hours as well. Well,
and I understand also authorities visited some Pennsylvania tourists that claim to have had some video as well. Do we know if anything came from that?
They did. There was a tourist who was in the area photographing the mounted policeman who was interested in the fact that there were mounted police in Times Square. That surprises a lot of tourists who think that in the very most urban area in the U.S. they would see policemen on horseback. And the tourist thought that the video was made at about the time that the SUV was parked, which would have been about 6:30 on Saturday night. But the police looked at the video and satisfied themselves that it was taken at an entirely different time. The reason they were interested in it is that it showed someone running away from where the SUV was parked. But police said earlier today that they decided that that was not relevant and that therefore they were not going to release it because they thought it was taken at a different time.
And Pete, just to clarify, this Shahzad Faisal, he was arrested on Long Island or in Connecticut?
Long Island, we're told tonight. I think we had thought that police might make an arrest at his either his house or the house of someone he knew in Connecticut, but apparently that arrest did not take place where it was initially planned. How they found him on Long Island is not entirely clear at this point, but he is in custody now.
And what his connection to Long Island may be, we don't know as well?
Right. I don't know what he was doing there tonight, frankly, but the assumption is that the authorities had him under surveillance for some time and were able to trace him there, whether it was by telephone calls or what, I don't know. I'm going to guess here and say that in an investigation like this, they may have been able to get wiretaps on his cell phones and were able to trace his movement that way. But that's strictly a guess on my part. I don't know how they found him tonight and made the arrest. I know that there was some concern that he might have been armed. Apparently there were records indicating that he had bought weapons in the past, and they wanted to make certain that when the arrest came down that he wasn't armed, that there wouldn't be any kind of an armed confrontation, and apparently that was not the case tonight. It was a peaceful arrest.
All right, NBC News Chief Justice Correspondent Pete Williams.